I'm going to start the recording.
Action.
Action.
I've always wanted to say that.
All right, people are starting to really start to come in. Let's wait just a few more minutes before we get started today. Give a few more people time to get on. All right, it's about 2 minutes after the hour. Looks like about everybody's joined. So let's go ahead and get started there, Daniel. So hello, everyone, and welcome to the GREE Select Dealer Webinar. My name is Dwayne Butler. I'm the Director of Commercial Sales here at GREE. I handle the VRF side of the business. And I'm here today with my friend and colleague, Daniel Hamrick.
Good morning.
Daniel, so what do you got to share with us today?
All right, so for today's episode of the GREE Select Dealer Webinar, and it's good to be back with everyone. I know we missed last month, a lot going on, but it's good to be back, and I'm excited to present a new product. We'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the controls in the meeting. At the bottom of your screen, you should have a Q&A box. So if you'll please put any questions that you think of as we go along in the Q&A box, and we'll try our best to address all of them at the end of the presentation. And just make sure you don't put them in the chat. That way we can kind of keep an eye on making sure we answer your questions. All right, so I'd like to introduce everybody, and you may have heard of it before, but I'd like to introduce you to the Vireo Gen 3, the 3 VIR. And the product is a single zone, 1 outdoor, with 4 indoor units to choose from. We'll start with the first one, which is the wall mount, the high wall mount. That is also a Vireo Gen 3 VIR. It's a little bit different, and we'll get into that. Secondly is the ceiling cassette. Third is the universal floor ceiling. And fourth is the high static slim duct that this outdoor unit is compatible with. Now, the cool thing about this is, and this has been asked over and over and over again. In the past, we had the single zone that would work with the cassette, the floor ceiling, the slim duct model, but it was the U-match, and it only went down to 18,000 BTUs. So if you needed something smaller, a 12K or a 9K, you had to go with the U-match with that 18. This is the single zone option to have these multi cassette, floor ceiling, and slim duct compatible with this single zone outdoor in a 9 and a 12 up to 24K.
Good. Hey, Daniel, question.
Yes.
So on all these indoor unit models, for those that are a little bit new here to GREE, so are these multi-zone compatible as well? Can you use this with these same indoors with multi-zone products?
Yes, most certainly. And it may be a good option. I like the design of it and a few of the features that we'll go over as we go along. I think you're going to be really impressed with it. I was personally when I first received it. I'm really excited about this product. It answered a lot of questions that I have heard over from the contractors over the past 4 years. It addressed all of these questions.
So are you going to cover those questions if later in the presentation, or you
yes,
some of the questions?
Yes, most certainly, and I'll point them out to you. Another thing to note is that it's the B revision ceiling cassette, floor ceiling, and slim duct. So it's the B revision models that are compatible with this outdoor unit. And let's go over some specifications on the 3VR. So a few really cool things to me, and I'll talk about the compressor and whatnot in a minute, is the cooling and heating temperature ranges. So you've got a temperature range. Hold on just a second. I've got a couple of windows in front of my presentation. Sorry about that, folks. So the cooling temperature range, this is a low ambient cooling down to -20 up to 122. And the heating temperature range down to -22 up to 86. That's a really wide range compared to what we've seen in the past.
So Daniel, another question. On the -20, are there any accessories required to go to -20, or is that right out of the box? No wind baffles, anything?
Right out of the box. There's no low ambient kit that you have to add to it. It's ready to go just like our other products. You know, GREE's never required any type of wind baffle or anything like that to attain what the design low ambient cooling temp is.
Okay.
The other exciting thing about it is its high efficiency, up to 25.3 SEER, 11.5 HSPF. And like I said earlier, the compressor. So this is what really excited me about it, is that I'm seeing in the Northeast, you know, the Ultra is really popular because of the low temperatures that it can heat down to. Excellent product. I love the Ultra system. I don't really need it where I'm at here in South Carolina because it doesn't get that cold. So the exciting thing to me that I saw was the compressor in the 3VR is a G10 single stage compressor. So what does that mean? It means that it's a lot lighter. So I can actually pick the 12K unit up, set it in the back of my truck without straining my back or having to have 3 people to help me with it. So as you know, the Ultra compressors are a little heavier. So this is an excellent option. It's a lot more, it's easier to move and maneuver and put on your wall stand and that sort of thing.
Good information.
And as far as the specifications as clearances go, I know we've seen a few changes here and there on a couple of products that we've come out with in the past year. This one follows the standard mini split clearances as far as to the wall, left and right, and that sort of thing. On the outdoor, we've got 12 inches to the wall. And then on the, if you do put it on a stand, of course, you know, that's allowable to go closer to the wall because you've got airflow from underneath. And then on the indoor unit, we've got the standard clearances that you see, which is 6 to the ceiling, 6 inches to the right and to the left, and then 6 feet to the floor. And what's in the box? This is the first one that I received. So what's in that package when you open the box for the outdoor unit, it may look a little bit different now. We're trying to change to a better material sent with the product. So at the time that I received this, you have your drain connection, your plugs to plug the bottom of the unit to use that drain to drain your condensate away from the outdoor if you have it on a wall mount or something like that. And then you've got the owner's manual. That's all there is to it. That owner's manual is actually an install owner's manual. But as I always say, refer to the website for the latest and greatest. We're constantly updating and improving.
So this unit will have the QR code like our other units, correct?
Yes, it most certainly will. It'll have the QR code near the data plate on the outdoor unit. So you can use your phone and just snap a picture and it'll take you right to the quick tip videos for installation.
So one last question. This new outdoor unit, does it have a base pan heater in it?
It does. Base pan heater is included on all of our current product. All right. And
thank you.
And what's in the indoor unit box? Here's what it looked like when I opened it up. You've got your insulation over here for your line set to finish it up with and make sure everything's sealed so you don't get condensate on your wall or on your sheetrock. And then we've got a packet We've got a packet with the owner's manual, which is also install manual. The Wi-Fi, there's a little sheet with how to hook up the Wi-Fi. The 3VIR is ready to go with Wi-Fi. No more modules, no more additions. It's ready to go. So the 3VIR wall mount, you can go ahead and hook up to your internet and control it from the GREE Plus app. Then we've got the flare nuts, the mounting hardware, and the remote control. This is really cool to me. So you no longer have to open the front hood to take out the filters. It's located at the top, the front. When it closes, it seals everything. So all you have to do is push the 3 tabs at the top front of the filter. The filter comes right out. You can take it and wash it and put it back in really easily. This came up. Someone mentioned that they got some 3VIRs and they were missing the filters. Well,
oh, because they opened the door and didn't see it.
If you open the front hood and you look in there, it doesn't look like it has a filter. So it's on the top. So it doesn't look like there's one installed if you're looking under the hood.
Well, that's a nice change because it makes it easier to maintain it and not have to worry about the consumer accidentally breaking the door or anything. So that's really
most
nice.
Certainly. And that was an issue in the past. I broke the hinge on the front cover. And next, and this is the most exciting, I think, for the GREE Select dealers, is that they actually took into account tech guys that have to work on this stuff. So easy service access for the GREE 3VIR indoor unit. It's really simple, step by step. We'll go through it. 1, pop the hood. 2, take 1 screw out. 3, remove that cover. 4, remove the electrical connection terminal, and all you have to do is push a tab and pull it to the side. You'll see here that it moves out of the way of your electric box. And number 6, just pull that main control board right out of there. There's enough play in the wires and everything that's connected to that control board. There's enough play to pull it all the way out to where you can get to everything and unplug it and remove the control board.
So no screw or anything. The board just basically, once you take the electrical panel and set it to the side, you can actually just pull it. It slides right out without taking any screws or anything out.
Yes, sir.
Excellent.
Yep. It comes right out of there. It's in a groove in the plastic electric box. So, and everything around it's plastic, which I really like. There was a good deal of metal around the other ones. And this one's sliding into a plastic electric box assembly. So I've seen and talked to several contractors that were cleaning it or taking apart or whatnot. They forgot to turn the power off and accidentally touched something to that metal box, and they needed a control board, obviously.
Good improvement.
The next difference on the 3VIR indoor high wall mount is that it has 2 louvers, which is different to me. Usually you just got the 1 louver. This one actually has a top one that looks like your normal one, as you can see on the picture there. And then it has a bottom one that kind of seals that area when it closes. And it also diffuses the air in, 2 different, one's going kind of straight out and one can angle down a little bit. And that allows the air to, especially in heat mode, what I noticed when I've got one on the wall over here is that I'm actually getting heat near the unit and away from the unit. So it's not cold right under the unit anymore, which is, excellent.
So a question for you, maybe you're going to cover this. If so, tell me, do both of these louvers oscillate when you have the unit in swing mode? Do they both front and back oscillate?
Yes, as the one on the wall that I tested, when you put it in oscillation, it actually moves in tandem. So they're moving together. They're both going up and down, and you can set them with the remote control. And then the internal, the first vanes that come through, and I know you've seen them on the other units, they actually oscillate as well. So you've got left and right and up and down oscillation on the remote control that you can adjust.
And all of that's set by the remote control. Now, the rear louver, can you set that to go left and right? Can you actually split that, or is it going to be a complete? Can you actually split it, or is it full swing on the rear louver?
So the rear louver, the left and right louver, if you set it to oscillate, it's going to move both left and right sides.
Okay.
I know
you can fix it to split it if you want. You can fix it to split it.
Right. If you set it, it will split. So you can have one left and one right, and you can see that on the remote control. The diagram on the remote control, it'll show you where it's directing it.
All right, good. Great new feature.
And something else has come up as we've introduced the product. The wall mount indoor option has a matte finish. So keep that in mind if you're installing a multi-system. You don't want to mix the old and the new necessarily, because it doesn't have the slick finish. It's got a nice clean matte finish that doesn't reflect light. So it could look a little different if you've got one on this wall and then one right around the corner that's got the slick finish on it.
Good information.
And as far as the indoor goes, just a little bit about where the sensors are located. As you can see, it looks very similar to your standard wall mount. This is the one that I have on the wall. The return air sensor, or the indoor ambient sensor, is located underneath the control box, just like the other models, indoor high wall mount models. You can see there, it's right underneath that electric control box. And then the coil sensor is in pretty much the same location as well. It's on one of the U-bends of the indoor unit, sensing that coil temperature. And the outdoor ambient sensor on the outdoor unit's located just where the others are. It's located on the back side of the condenser coil there. The heat exchanger sensor. Now this is a 9K 3VR outdoor unit that I've taken apart, taken the panels off of, and the condenser coil sensor or heat exchanger sensor is located right there. Pretty easy to get to. And the discharge sensor is located there near the compressor. Right there.
All easy accessible.
Yes, most certainly. And so some of the LIVS models, the smaller models, had a cap tube. And you'd have to look at the parts catalog to determine, does it have a cap tube or does it have an electronic expansion valve? The 3VIR product comes with an expansion valve, so it's able to provide exact control of the refrigerant flow to ensure the most efficient use of energy, all the way down from the 9K up to the 24K. It's got an electronic expansion valve in it. All right, now let's talk about the 3VR installation. I've actually installed one of these so that I can give y'all a decent representation of how it goes. First of all, start with your piping. You want to double check that your piping connection sizes are correct between the indoor and outdoor. Now, something that's come up and you'll need to pay attention to, I don't know why that moved by itself. With the introduction of being able to use the multi-cassette or the slim duct on this outdoor unit, you may find that some of the refrigerant piping to the indoor units could be different from the outdoor. So you've got to keep in mind, think of it like you're thinking about a multi-system. Always follow the line set size of the indoor unit. So if you do need to adapt it when you get outside, you use an adapter just like you would on the multis, the multi 21 series. You'll need an adapter, but you've got to stay with the size of the indoor unit. Obviously, you want to match up BTU for BTU indoor and out if you're installing one of these, but just keep in mind there could be a difference on the, I think it came up on the cassette, but you know, if there is a difference, always follow indoor piping size to the outdoor.
So do you just say you say it came up? Was it just on like the size 24, or was it on particular sizes that you can recall that
it was on the 24.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a different pipe size on the 24 cassette. All right, and then just like your other high wall mounts, the high wall installation is pretty straightforward. Install the mounting bracket. You want to choose a location that allows for your clearances, so you've got proper clearances. And I still don't know why it's doing that, but my apologies. Identify the location of the piping in the drain hole where you want to make that exit for that, and ensure the bracket is secure to the wall and level. What I found when I put my bracket on the wall, and this has been the case since the very first one that I installed, 4.5 years ago, is that if you don't properly secure it at the left top and the right top corner, it could bow away from the wall just a hair. So you want to make sure that that bracket's secured. And for the wall penetration, you want to make sure that you have a hole saw that's big enough for your line set and your drain line to go through, and your communication cable and your power cable. So you want to make sure that you've got enough room there to get everything through. And then you want to make sure that it's got a downward slope for your drain. It doesn't matter about the electrical and the line set, but you've got to have a slope, obviously, for your drain piping.
So is this a design change from previous models, Daniel, or is this basically the same bracket?
This is pretty much identical. The process is all the same. A couple of things may look a little different, but as far as the installation goes, if you've installed a high wall, you're not going to be surprised by anything. You can choose left or right to make your exit from the indoor for your piping, and you can move the drain plug from left or right if you need to for easy access to get that drain out without causing a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, most certainly. So as far as the drain goes, you want to make sure that you connect the wall unit drain hose to the outlet piping and secure the joint with tape. What I've found on when installing these is that if you want to move from flexible pipe to the straight PVC, you can use a PVC 3/4 coupling. This will go right into that coupling. You can put you some Gorilla tape or whatever you want to use to secure it, make sure it doesn't pop out for whatever reason. And that works really good to make this transition. Is that what you normally do, Dwayne?
Yeah, I think as soon as you can get to PVC, the better, because the amount of water that these units will discharge is, as soon as you get to PVC, the better. I mean, the pipe's designed to slide, as you said, designed down into 3/4 PVC. You know, one of the things I tried to always avoid is using the corrugated tubing for long runs where you created traps, that can create. So I think as soon as a person can get it to PVC, they should, and just seal it, like you said, seal a joint well.
Yeah, most certainly. I like to use the PVC coming down the wall because you just tape it to your line set and it looks nice, a nice exit. And then don't forget, when you're the wall units have factory connections for condensate plumbing and refrigerant lines. When you're making that exit, and I've used some of this, some of the Rector Seal line hide, it makes it look really nice and clean. But something that often gets forgotten, and I get calls about it, is sealing that hole up. So you can see right there, this one that I installed, I used the window and door foam because it's pliable when it dries. I like it. It's easy to clean up once it's dried. And if we don't seal that, if you remember, we were looking at where the ambient sensor was located on the indoor unit. If we don't seal that, we're going to pull a little bit of air from outside in through there, and that's going to the indoor unit's going to think that the ambient is outside temp, not what you're trying to achieve inside. So overheating, underheating, and that type of thing. Well, overheating, overcooling is what you're going to end up with, because it'll either think it's too cold or it'll think it's too hot during the summer.
Yeah, so what you're pointing out is that the room temperature sensors directly, if you're taking and installing and turning the lines directly and going through the hole, your room temperature sensor is right in front of that hole. So if you don't seal it, it's coming right onto that sensor and it's not getting true ambient temperature to get accurate control.
It sounds like you've seen this happen before.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
It's pretty common.
Yeah, a lot.
And next, we want to talk about piping and the flares. So one of the most important things that you can do is make a good flare on these systems. All of the mini split systems that we offer use mechanical thread flare fittings, no brazing or filter dryers required. It's a 45-degree flare, and you want to make sure that you prepare the mating surfaces properly with some refrigerant oil. A correct flare is most certainly going to be the first step in avoiding callbacks from leaks. And we'll talk a little bit more about the flaring tools. I actually have the one on the right there. I've got the Yellow Jacket little handheld. I've got one like that on the left there, and I haven't had a chance to use it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. But the Yellow Jacket one, it creates a perfect flare. And as long as I'm using proper tooling and using some refrigerant oil on the threads, then I don't have any issues out of it.
Yeah, so have you seen any of these battery operated flaring tools that make these flares? I was in a meeting in Tennessee last week, and a gentleman brought in his, I can't think of the name, Navion, I believe it is.
Mm-hmm.
What a nice tool. I mean, it basically makes a perfect flare every time. You still have to remember to put the flare nut on first, but it does make a nice flare.
I like that. I always forget the darn flare nut, and then I end up having to cut it off and do another flare. So by the time I'm done, I do have a good flare.
Yeah, you had practice on the first one.
So no, I haven't heard of the electric one. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's a nice tool. There was a customer that brought one into a training on the product we did a couple of weeks ago, and it really worked well. I mean, he bought it for a project where he had about 100 units. He said it cut his installation time in half because he was making the flares. So something we might want to look into in the future as we talk about tools, because it is really a nice tool.
You know, one of the most exciting things about this is talking about tools.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to have to look that up and go get one.
Yeah.
So I can try it out. And as far as the outdoor connections go, you know, you've got flares indoor and out. There's no brazing. There's no liquid port on the GREE units, at least the mini split units. And don't forget that it is 5/16 threads on your service valve. So you've got to have that adapter. I recommend buying about 10 of them, and that way you have one at least when you get to the job site.
So I was going to give you a suggestion too, is if you look at the tool on the lower left of the screen, that Appion. So Appion makes one that's pink, that's 5/16, and then goes to quarter gauge. So that's what I carry, because those little adapters, they're like gremlins. They just disappear or something in your bag. But if you pay 40 or 50 bucks for that Appion tool, you're more apt to keep it in place. You won't lose it. But also it's got the port to put for a micron gauge. And that's what I've used for a long time, because it does have the 5/16 adapter, and it just keeps from, you tend to hold on to that one a little better.
I've got one from our friends at JB Tools that is similar, very similar. And that's a lifesaver. To go ahead and have that with the 5/16 size is incredible. And that way you're already hooked up. You don't have to worry about either one, losing the adapter, or two, it leaking.
Yeah. Yeah, they're kind of like socks in your dryer. You know, you always have a set, go out with a set, and something happens to that second one. You don't know what happened to it.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
these things, same way they disappear. So I switched the Appian a couple of years ago, and they work well. You can take the straighter out for evacuation, put your micron gauge on it. Just a real nice tool.
You can pull a lot quicker vacuum once you remove those straighter valves.
Once you move the straighter, you can evacuate quicker.
All right. So the last step in of flares is obviously tightening the flare nut. One of the most important things that you can have in your toolbox is the torque wrench. Now this one, what type is this one here?
What is the brand?
Yeah, I don't recognize that one.
I don't either, other than just seeing it. I'm not real familiar with it. I've seen it out in some of our distributors, but I'm not familiar with the brand.
I've got this one here, the CPS, that I really enjoy. And it actually works for the flex, the 3/4. You know, you got a lot bigger line. It goes up to the 3/4 as well. So I enjoy using that one. It's electronic. So I can see exactly and get it right on as far as the torque goes. Now, something that I'd like to point out, you'll notice here that you've got foot pounds and Newton meters. If you're looking, if you decided to take the manual that came with the unit out from under your knee and get some mud on your knee, then and you open it up, it's going to have in there, it's going to have Newton meters. So pay attention to that when you're looking at them. Don't take for granted that it's foot pounds. A lot of times you'll see Newton meters. My CPS has a setting. You can change it foot pounds, Newton meters, or there's a couple of others that I don't remember because I don't use them. Here's some good examples of some improper flares. I like this one here. It's got the what we say don't use, right, Dwayne? It's right. You can see it's got the blue on it there, and that can cause a big issue. See how close that is to the entrance there of that pipe. So if we get any of that inside the pipe, we're gonna what's gonna happen? We're gonna clog up an expansion valve strainer, and we're gonna have a big issue. Or you plug up the
line set, or I share a little story. I've got a multi-zone, GREE multi-zone here in my shop that was returned by a contractor who was adamant it could not be fixed. And when I got it back, I had him send me the line sets, and they had used that blue leak lock, and they'd filled the liquid line full of leak lock. And it turned out just a bad flare. I cleaned the line set up, cut it off, made a new flare. The thing's been running for 3 years without any problems. So that's why we're adamantly against using any kind of sealant on these threads. Make a nice flare, torque them correctly, and you just won't have issues with them.
Oh, most certainly. Just a little bit of refrigerant oil on the threads and use your torque wrench, and you're good to go. As you can see here, this is what I did on the 1/4 inch lines when the very first one that I installed. Every time that I went to try and tighten it, it broke the flare because I was using an adjustable wrench and way too much torque.
So you had your knee on your installation mat and your torque wrench in the truck. So what you're saying?
Yeah. No, I didn't even own a torque wrench.
Oh.
You see, go get one.
Yeah, get a torque wrench.
Most certainly. All right, as far as electrical requirements go, always follow your local code and National Electric Code. Some codes call for additional means of disconnect at the indoor. You want to make sure that you're using a switch, a 3-pole switch like this. I believe we have those in stock, don't we, Dwayne? For the indoor high walls.
We don't have them, but a lot of our distributors stock them. But it's it's made by Mars. It's a 3-pole motor rated switch, And this is coming up in a lot of code jurisdictions in the country that they're requiring indoor disconnect. Now we're on our side, we're trying to really strongly dissuade them from doing it. But as the new code comes in next year, I think you're going to see this more and more throughout the country. And so, real important that if you do have to do it or you run into it, that you use the right switch, or else you're going to have communication issues.
Oh, most certainly. And I think the code requires that all 3 wires be broken. And the problem with that is if you splice or break a communication wire, it always ends up being an issue. So if you use the proper switch, it's going to properly reconnect that that circuit so that it doesn't break communication.
And if you do have to use a switch, make sure you use crimp on terminals to put on the screws to make sure you just go the extra mile, not to cause yourself a service issue down the road.
Oh, most certainly. And last but not least, please use a surge protector. That'll save your butt. It's there's way too many power surges affecting electronic equipment, and these inverter systems have electronic control boards. So we want to make sure that we're providing some type of surge protection to protect these units.
Yeah, definitely want to consider that.
Now, as far as the 3 VIR goes, I know that there's, we were talking a little bit about the U-match in the beginning, and that this is our single zone that'll work with the cassette and whatnot. It's the multi-cassette, so we're still needing to provide power from the outdoor to the indoor, unlike the U-match, which requires separate power supply to both indoor and outdoor. The 3 VIR is just like the multi and your other mini split single zones that require the 4-wire. We want to make sure that we always use 14 gauge 4 conductor. All 4 need to be insulated, 600 volt rated cable, stranded copper cable. And then as far as wiring go, it's just like you would see on the previous models. You're gonna hook in 1, 2, 3 and ground at the outdoor and the indoor, and you're gonna bring your power into L and N, and then your ground in. Obviously, you want to make sure it doesn't matter what colors you use, whichever one you pick, but they've got to be connected to the correct one on the indoor and the outdoor, so they need to match. And so once we've got all our wiring and everything installed, we've made our proper torque on our flares. We want to do a leak test. We want to make sure that you've got a nitrogen regulator that goes up to at least 500 psi. These systems, the high pressure switch isn't going to cut off until about 610 psi. So we're safe to put 500 psi of nitrogen on that system, let it sit for an hour and make sure that it doesn't drop. And what I normally do is I'll grab my bubbles and I'll soak my joints just to make sure while that pressure is on there.
Very good point. And the thing that to point out here, especially if these units that are high heat like these, that when you're running them on a day of like 45, 50 degrees, maybe an elderly couple needs heat, these things they'll run close to 600 psi in heating, and it's very important that they'll usually leak on the heating side because cooling is such low pressure. And I've personally seen a leak test at 300 work fine, work all summer, then go to heating side and it leaks. So it's real important to do this 500 psi test and do the hour because these things really run high pressure.
Most certainly. All right, and then after we've done our pressure test, we want to remove the nitrogen, and we want to make sure that we do a proper evacuation. Now, as I was looking for a picture of my 3 VIR, I didn't find one that I had taken of the vacuum pump and the micron gauge. So I just used this picture here. As you can see in this picture, we've got the micron gauge as close to the service valve as we can get it. So we want to make sure that the micron gauge is away from the vacuum pump. so that we're getting an accurate reading of what is actually what we're pulling it down to. Now, industry standards, best practice, in the install manuals, you'll find something such as 500 microns. So you want to evacuate it down to 500. My recommendation as a tech would be to pull it under 300. Scientifically speaking, under 300, moisture cannot exist. So if I get it under 300 and I get it to hold for 30 minutes and it doesn't rise above that 500, I know that I'm good to go.
And so as we're talking about new product today, these are all just repeats. So there's no real change in installation with the new Vario Gen 3. These are just repeats of practices that we consider good practice for mini splits, correct?
Most certainly. And I like to use that term, industry standards and best practices. That's what you're using for this system. There's nothing in particular that I found other than functions and features that changed. So as far as the install goes, you're following all your standard procedures. One of the big things that tends to come up is open both valves. This shouldn't be an issue on this one. There's only two. I know that on the multis, it gets a little confusing. You got all those pipes and all those valves, and sometimes you'll forget one, or I will. And so make sure that you're opening both your valves, and then we can move on forward to charging and get this system up and running. So as far as equipment goes, we've already talked about the adapters. You want to make sure that you've got a refrigerant scale in case you need to adjust the charge. GREE inverter products do not have a charging chart, so always weigh in. The 3VR09 to 24K is factory charged for up to 25 feet. And then just follow the submittal of the system that you're installing for the additional charge amount. And obviously, we always want to turn our drum upside down when we're weighing it in, right, Dwayne?
Correct. Definitely. And there is no way to charge these other than weight, correct? There's no
Correct.
easy button, no
There's no
hold. It's for those of us that are older, it's by weight only.
It's by weight only. So, and you know, the reason behind that is when we started working with these products, they've got the expansion valve in the outdoor unit, right? There's no expansion valve at the indoor. So when you hook up your gauges to it and you're reading your pressure, and you know, you're getting frustrated because there's not a high side port to check the pressure with, right? It's not going to do you any good. The superheat on these it can vary up and down with that inverter. You've got your expansion valve adjusting, you've got your compressor adjusting speed. There, if you created a chart, it'd have to be 10 pages of charts, depending on what outdoor temperature, you know, what speed you were on, all these different things. So that's the reason behind weigh in. And if you've been a service tech for a long time, you know, charging by subcool and superheat, it's a new world. So,
and so the issue is the shortcut method is weigh it in and you're good to go. There's no other way to do it.
Purge and let it go. No, we can't do that.
Can't do that anymore. So, all right, good information.
So in case any of y'all got bored while I was, you know, going on about weighing refrigerant in, here's a blooper reel.
That's a little bit of an issue. Did you have a pressure problem with that one?
You know what we had? We had an E1 error code on this one, because you're pushing the heat into the next one. So the next one, the front one, is causing the problem. And then the next one here, this one I was really excited about. I love this photo. Maybe if this is a Where's Waldo. Can you find the third outdoor unit?
Is that a unit clear down there in the bottom?
Yep, all the way down in there. There's another unit down there, and from what we were told is the one on the bottom, that thing don't work. Honestly, I'm surprised the second one works. All right, so we'll get to the controls, and I think this is a little bit more exciting about the 3VIR. Is the remote control's new, it's different, and it's got a few features that everybody's been asking for. So I think going through these is going to be fun. So as you can see here, we've got the remote. This came out of the 9K unit that I got, the indoor unit. The first step, put some batteries in it. So if it doesn't work, put the batteries in it.
Yeah, that's helpful.
The one of the for the most part, all of the controls are the same. I've checked it with some other model indoor units. This remote will control those, just as we tell everyone. There was only one model that didn't work with all the others, but they'll control any indoor unit. The only caveat to that is that some of the features and benefits of this remote and the 3VIR, they just won't work on the other models. So, just such as the auto mode. So the auto mode this is new, and I've been asked this for 4.5 years. Is the auto mode adjustable? Used to it was set. So if you put it in the auto, it would heat to 68 and cool to 77, auto changeover from heat to cool. Well, now with the auto mode, it's going to auto changeover, but you can change the set temp. So if you want to set it on 68 in the auto mode, it will change over from heat to cool for your set point.
So to clarify this, so this is a new remote and you have adjustable auto mode. And so on like a Levo or one of the other units or the older units, this will control it, but it's not going to have that controlled auto mode function like it does on the Vireo Gen 3. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. You can use it to control that Levo, but it's not going to have the adjustable auto mode.
So the adjustable auto mode is only on this new generation that's going to work.
Correct, on the 3VIR.
Okay.
The other exciting thing that I think is really useful is the auto clean function. So what the auto clean function does is it once you set it in the mode, it cools it goes into cool mode, it frosts up the indoor coil, and then it switches over to heat mode, and it heats up that indoor coil, and you'll see some steam come off. I tested it on the one on the wall here. You'll see a little bit of steam come off there, heats it up really hot. And so in that process, it's flushing that coil of any dust that's collected or lint that's collected on it. Now, the cool thing that I noticed was it actually has on the back of the remote control how to set that, so you don't have to go look for it. It's got details about it in the manual, in the service manual, but it tells you how to put it in that clean mode right there on the back of the remote control.
Oh, great.
I also noticed a different position of the auto manual button. So if you do happen to misplace the remote control, you can still put it in auto mode or manual mode, but it's located on the display. So if you open the front hood and you look at the display module, it's right underneath there. Pretty easy to see as you're looking up at it. You can see it in the picture there.
So from previous models where it was actually on the chassis, it's now basically on the lid of the display, on the back of the display. That
correct,
okay.
Correct, and it's a lot easier to see, and you can read the writing on it. The previous models had it somewhere right here on that panel, and you just about have to use a little pin to punch the button. This one's pretty easy to recognize.
Okay.
And a few tips and tricks, some things that I noticed. The service manual contains disassembly details that are just out of this world to me. This is really awesome. You can see here that it's an actual picture, not just a diagram, and you can see that they've used the actual model that we're talking about to see to break it down and take it apart. Something else is that the front cover is removed by pressing opposite of the previous model. So if you remember on your other front covers, you would press in. So you'd use just your finger, don't use a screwdriver, don't use needle nose pliers, you'll break it. You want to just press in and the front cover come off. On this model, you need to press out, and then the front cover will let loose. Obviously, you have to take the display off to remove that front cover completely.
So can you give our viewers today how do you recommend cleaning the blower wheel in these? How's the best way to access with the fan running all the time and cooling, these blowers get dirty. Mm-hmm. From your experience, and maybe on this one, how are they going to clean the blower wheel on this?
So in my experience cleaning the blower wheel, these you'll need to take the outer shell off, and then you'll need to loosen the evaporator coil, and it lifts up just enough to where you can get that wheel out of there and you can take it out and clean it. Now, if you don't want to go through all that, you can use some of the products like the Speed Clean kit, where you can just flush the system and it all goes into an apron and down into your bucket. You can use something similar to that, but in my experience, it's pretty easy to lift that coil just enough to get that assembly out of there and clean it really well.
Okay.
And the other thing that I noticed was the louvers. We talked about there being 2 louvers, and if you're taking the front cover off, or not the front cover, but the shell, the entire shell, if you want to take that entire shell off, it's really easy to remove the louvers. So on these, you've got 2 tabs, and they're actually built in, so they're not going to fall out when you take the tab out. The previous models, if you took that tab out, you lose it in the floor. You can't find it. You got to go find one. It's irritating. And so these are actually fixed, and there's a little tab to push out on each side, and then it just lets go.
Okay.
And last but not least is, I'm really excited about this, is the Wi-Fi wired controller, the new XE72. So what we're going to be able to do with this is we'll be able to hook it up to a cassette, a slim duct, a floor ceiling model, and we'll be able to program that to the GREE app. So in the past, we haven't had any Wi-Fi options for those models. Now we do. So coming soon. And when did we say it was going to be introduced, Dwayne?
It's projected mid Q1 2022. So probably looking at February, March of next year that this will be in inventory.
Okay, excellent. I'm looking really forward to getting this out there. I think it's going to be really exciting. So I can't wait to get my hands on one and see what we can do with it.
Excellent.
And as we were kind of chit-chatting back and forth about that parts lookup system, Dwayne, our new GREE parts lookup is the latest and greatest way to find part numbers. So all you have to do is go to our website, go to support, click on parts lookup. It's got a little new button beside it so you can see it. And all you have to do is type in a model number, beginning of a model number, a part number, and it will take you to a bunch of different options. You can type in the full model number and go directly to it. It'll take you to this. You just click on product parts list. That'll give you some details about the model that you selected. And then once you click on the parts, it'll give you the parts diagram breakdown. And underneath, you're going to see your reference number. You'll see your part, and there's actually photos that are constantly being updated of the actual part, the physical part. So it's not just a stock photo. You'll be able to pull this part up and look at it, and you can see, okay, that's definitely the one I need.
Excellent.
And don't forget to check out greetraining.com. All of the quick tip videos are there. That's where the QR code on the outdoor unit takes you to, is the quick tip videos, and the install videos and other webinars that we've done, training instructional videos and webinars are located on the website there. Don't forget about our tech support team. If you do reach out to them, make sure that you're providing them model serial. Don't forget to leave your number and your distributor, and just a brief description of the error code. It helps us help you quicker so that we can get you while you're still out on that job site and get you the help you need. All right, Dwayne, I guess we can open it now to questions. It looks like we've got a few.
Yeah, we've got several questions. So I'll read
Yeah.
the questions if you want to answer them. So let me pull it up in the chat and I'll read them. So let's start here. All right. So see, Denise is there. So hello, Denise. I see you have a question. So starting first one, we've got a question from Paul. It says, does GREE have any plans to offer a ceiling cassette that will fit in between a 16 on-center ceiling joist like the one Mitsubishi has? I'd like to sell more ceiling cassettes, but truss spacing is always the issue. And so now I can speak a little bit. I'm not really sure about that. We'd have to get with product management, but not to my knowledge. Daniel, do you know anything about that?
I'm not aware, but it's definitely something that we should bring up to the product management team and see if they're looking into that.
All right. So the next question from Paul again. He says, by the way, is Jerry Wagner still with you guys? So our friend Jerry has migrated north of the border. He now is working for Tissot in Canada. So he left us about a month ago. We're still friends, but he's moved on to a better opportunity. So Jerry's no longer with us. And then we got the next one. Also, could we get some updated literature and catalog? All right. So we're working on a new catalog now. The literature, I believe, is the Gen 3 literature, I believe, is done, isn't it, Daniel?
The Gen 3, the Vireo Gen 3 literature is on the website. So it's all on there, what we have at the moment. I am positive that the marketing team is working on paper versions of things that they can get out to folks.
All right. Then we have a question from Charlie. It says, will a BIR indoor work with the Gen 3 outdoor? So the previous indoor would work with the new outdoor?
No.
It will
it's not a compatible model.
So it's not backwards compatible.
It is not backwards compatible.
All right. So we had a question from my friend Troy Rudd. How easy it is to remove the indoor blower wheel for cleaning on the new high wall? I think we answered that.
We went over that. Yep.
All right. And then our friend Marshall gave us the name of the flaring tool I was talking about, Navac. I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
Okay.
Navac. Yeah,
I'll have to take a look at it.
They make a great vacuum pump, and it is a really nice tool. So then we got a question from Don. He wants to know how we feel about Nylock's thread sealer. You familiar with it, Daniel?
So I think he means Nylog with a G.
I believe it is.
Yeah, I think that's what he's talking about. That's what we were talking about that was on those threads on that flare that we don't recommend, because if you get it inside, it's going to gum up stuff. It's going to gum up your expansion valve. Absolute best way that I've found in over the past years that I've been using the torque wrench, I've never had a leak when I used a little bit of oil on the threads and then use the torque wrench. I can usually disconnect that, install a different outdoor unit because I'm constantly moving things around and testing them, and use a torque wrench again and not have to remake the flare. After a few uses, I usually have to remake a flare, but generally speaking, and I don't use Nylog, I don't use any of that.
Yeah, I agree. Flare and torque wrench correct, and it's just not a need. We've got one question. I'm not sure if it's a question from Jim. He wants to know, one of the complaints he hears from his customers is that the remote will not display outdoor temperature. Has that been fixed, or is there any thought of that being a feature on any of the GREE product?
I've got a phone, and I've got the Weather Channel app, and when I want to know the outdoor temp, I can just pull it up and look at it. Or when if I want to know the outdoor temp, I've got a separate outdoor thermometer. I know it's a feature.
So you're telling us that
it's
not going to sense outdoor temperature. I think is what you're saying to us, correct?
It's not a feature that's available here in the United States. You can see the indoor temperature by pressing the temp button, but you can't see the outdoor temperature. To Jim's question, yes, that is being addressed in some way or another. We've had a lot of inquiries on it, so they are working with the factory to try and provide some type of solution to that.
Okay. And then next one wants to know type of refrigerant. It's still R410A. There's not been any refrigerant changes, right?
Correct. It's 410A.
All right. Then we have a last question from my friend Jason Myers. What is the contact number for tech support?
It is 888-850-7928. I thought I had that on the slide here. I thought I had added that.
Maybe give it out one more time for somebody that maybe doesn't have it.
Most certainly. It's 888-850-7928.
All right, then we got a couple things that covers all the questions. Let's look real quick. We got a couple things going on in chat. Let's see if there's anything we want to. All right, so one in the chat says, please go over the previous notes about the line set sizing and adapters included with the indoor units. Which size to use? A multi U42 with the 9K. I think we're talking more about multi-zone adapters here. And I think what they're asking, but the biggest thing you were pointing out was that the Vireo Gen 3 outdoor unit would probably be 3/8 quarter, but the 1/2-inch cassette or the 24 cassette may be a different line set size. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So as it says at the end of the question there, I heard your statement to follow the indoor unit sizing though. Yes, always follow indoor unit piping size. If you need to adapt it to outdoor.
So I think the big thing everybody's trying to do is they don't want to get that oops where they've been on the job site and ran the long line set. So can we put out some kind of a statement on which, but we probably need to clarify which ones are the different sizes, because
the product. Our friend Chuck is working on that.
Okay.
Yeah, most certainly.
All right, but the one that is a 24 cassettes. The one I think I would always say use 24 across the board is to verify your size. It's going to be the 2-ton where it's probably going to be the change. All righty. Are we planning to add capacities to be able to control units with a regular conventional thermostat or be controlled with a BAS control system? So a couple things, I can speak to that a little bit on the BAS side. So on the commercial side of the business, we're working now with a couple vendors to be able to get an interface for the mini splits with BAS. And as far as conventional control, I know there's some things in discussion, but Daniel, I think what they're asking is for like a 24-volt interface product with mini splits. Is there anything like that in the works?
All I can say to that is stay tuned.
All right, stay tuned.
Yep.
So we hear you, and it's a request for BAS control. We should have something by January 1st because we're seeing a lot of stuff on the commercial side where we'll have a VRF system, and then there's one mini split, and you're unable to tie that into a BAS system. So we're working with a couple of vendors, and so by early January, that'll be resolved.
Excellent. That's good to hear, Dwayne.
All right. Well, the new Gen 3 24,000 BT unit have a flex line on the indoor head.
That's a good question from Dale there. So in the past, I know that we have, it took us a while to pay attention to this and discover it, but when you went up to the 5/8, like on an 18K indoor wall mount, the pipe for the 5/8, your pigtail, I like to call it, coming out, is corrugated so that it's flexible. Now I don't have one to confirm whether that's the case or not, but I would hope so, that it's similar to all the other previous models. So I do have someone that I can ask and determine, have them actually look at an 18 that I know we've got somewhere and confirm that. So if you'd like, I'd be happy to follow up on that one, and maybe I can get a photo and share with everybody that was on the webinar today.
So we have one last question about the tech support number come in. Is there a tech support number for consumers, particularly as it pertains to use of remote and Wi-Fi features? And there's not. that I'm aware of. The installing dealer needs to work with our tech support line that we do. Am I correct in that, Daniel? We do not deal directly with consumers. We work with our dealers.
Correct. We're here to support the contractors.
That's correct. So I believe that's all we have in the chat and Q&A line. So we're right up on a little bit over an hour, Daniel. So anything else?
Excellent timing, Dwayne.
All right. So everybody, thanks so much for joining today. So Daniel, you're going to record this. Will this be available for everybody to rewatch at a later date?
From my understanding, it will be, but I haven't ever done that before. I know I'll have the recording. I'll get it over to who's going to handle that. And hopefully anybody that missed out, they'll be able to watch it. So thank you everyone for joining us today. It's been exciting. I'm excited about the 3VIR, and I hope all of you are too.
And thank you everybody for joining and signing in. We really appreciate your business. We appreciate you, each and every one of you, and y'all have a good day. All right, my friend, I'm going to call it a day.